Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow, your home for all Golden Grizzlies basketball. My name is Giovanni Moceri. I am your host. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to help support the show in all the ways that you can by either subscribing on YouTube, 5-star reviewing on Spotify, or whatever you do on Apple Podcasts. I'm not sure. You can also follow the show on Instagram. It's got its own dedicated page that just recently passed 300 subscribers, and we're still going too. You can find that at the GioMo Show. And you can find me on Twitter where I passed 400 followers. Also, thank you very much. That's just my personal one at GioMoSherry, WXOU. And you can use the hashtag #TheJoeMoShow on all platforms to stay up to date with the Golden Grizzlies. This is the place to be. And so is Wisconsin, apparently, as Oakland has swept their way through the state of Wisconsin with a win at Milwaukee and a win at Green Bay in very secure fashion. No real sweating going on in those games. And we'll talk about it all right here on the GioMo Show. We'll get things started with the Milwaukee game. Obviously, we're recording this the day after, or the day of the Green Bay game after the game. You can see where I got my words tongue-tied there. But we'll start with Milwaukee, where going into this game, we pretty much knew, and it's kind of been the storyline for the Panthers season, they're really beat up. They're missing their they're missing their starting front court. They're missing a ton of starting pieces, even some that we thought would play against us. Even though they weren't, they didn't play the game before. We thought they would come. They didn't. Basically, they were missing everybody. So that kind of set the stage for this game to be one where, okay, Oakland has won 5 of the past 6 matchups against Milwaukee. Now, we're 1-1 with them on the road in the past 2 seasons, within that 5 of 6. But, it's not a place where it's necessarily easy to win. Most of those games on the Wisconsin trip are going to be tough. Your usual best option is to split those games. However, Oakland made it a little bit sweeter in this one by going 2-0 in those games. But it was something to where Oakland just had to kind of take care of business. And a clear weakness in that front court was something that they had to have tackled, and they tackled it pretty darn hard with this game immediately. Going to Michael Hogue, and he scores 4 for 4 from the field, 8 points, pretty much instantly. Mike would end the game with a team-leading 19 points, 7 rebounds. He attempted a 3, similar to what he did against Wright State. Wright State, he made his 3-point shot. This one he did not, but I admire him for taking it. Brody Robinson in this game, also 17 points. He got to the line plenty. 12 of 14 from the line, along with 4 assists and 3 steals. I'm not going to go through the entire box score here, but I will give Isaac Garrett his flowers one more, just as part of a dominant front court. Baru, not so apparent in this game. He only had 4 points, but IG had 13 and 12 rebounds, him getting the double-double. But I will also say Baru had 10 rebounds as well. Just to kind of paint the picture as far as the stats go for this game, but it really was just Oakland got on them early against an injured front court. They used their superior front court, league superior front court, and demolished them. Now, where it did get really interesting in this one, it was about midway through the second half. We'll say the kind of the middle minutes of the second half, where Milwaukee, they're down their front courts. However, their guy that did step up as far as minutes was concerned was Tate McKenzie. He's got a fantastic story, and they detailed it on the broadcast too, where he's a huge dude, 6'10", 260 at his basketball size. He was originally recruited out of high school to Jim Harbaugh's Michigan Wolverines to play on the offensive line, or the defensive line, or to play in the line of scrimmage. He was in the 300-plus range, and there was at one point the broadcast said he got up to 400-plus. This is a big dude. However, he decided to commit to the sport of basketball, lost a ton of weight in order to do it, so he went from 400-plus to 260 to play basketball here, and he put it out a valiant effort in this one. You're just going up against the best front court in the league, so there's only so much he can do. He ended up with 18 minutes played, 3 points, 5 rebounds, 4 fouls. Now the fouling is what I want to get into, because at that point in the second half, those middle minutes, Michael Hogue was going up for a basket. It was blocked. I believe it was Hogue going for the basket, but either way, it was blocked by McKenzie, and going for the offensive rebound was Hogue, and they kind of got wrestled up a little bit, fighting for the ball, and Tate really throws him down, twists his body, throws him on the floor, and a little bit of a scuffle happens. And Brody comes in, he starts barking and shoving, and Tate's giving it back to him. At the end of the scrum, there was 3 technical fouls given. One to McKenzie, one to our Brody Robinson, and another to a Milwaukee player, Dixon. I didn't necessarily see what Dixon did, but the main characters in that one were McKenzie and Robinson. And this was at a really critical point in the game, too, where Oakland maintained a huge lead throughout the entire game at this point, but Milwaukee was kind of chipping away. They ended up getting it down to 6 points by the time that scrum happened. And then after the scrum happened, it immediately went back to an 11-point game, and Oakland continued to sail. So that at the critical point of the game, Milwaukee was unable to keep their cool, and it cost them that game too. Not super long after, a 4th technical foul would be called in this game, this time on Milwaukee's coach. And a foul that he was certain should have been called, ended up kind of storming onto the court, barking at the referee, and he got attacked for that. So just, it was hot in Milwaukee, and I can understand it through the recent history and the rivalry, and I even remember when we beat them in the conference championship game, and when we got all those newspaper clippings behind me, if you're watching on YouTube, from the Oakland Post, where most of those came from. In that game, that's where I at least got to see that there was a little bit of fire behind this Milwaukee fan base, specifically when it comes to Oakland. I love that. There's not a ton of that in the Horizon League, so to see that, especially you got the Milwaukee and Green Bay thing going on, obviously just because of geography, but there's also kind of a hidden one of Oakland and Milwaukee. So it was cool to be able to tap into that and that kind of fire coming up into the game. Obviously, I'm only saying it that way because it benefited us, but it was still exciting to see. But overall, to put a bow on this, Oakland took care of business. They did what they were supposed to, and they won by double digits. 73-60, a defensive game, and one that Oakland would end up winning and taking with them to Green Bay. They ended up staying in Wisconsin, and it is rumored and recorded, and not rumored anymore, it's fact, they went bowling the morning before, or one of the open mornings that they had, and Campy on the Green Bay's broadcast, he said he bowled the best. So, we'll continue our research to see what the bowling shenanigans were for Green Bay. It's always just it's a big topic of what they do on those days off. They mentioned on the radio show too. So I just like kind of tapping into the off days kind of side of things. But we'll switch it over to the game against the Green Bay Phoenix, against the team that was tied for us at second place in the league with a 6-2 conference record. Now, a little bit of backstory on Green Bay. We talked about them on the Horizon Round Table when I was on with a Green Bay-based Jim Sorrow from the Horizon Round Table. We talked about kind of Green Bay on how they've risen from the ashes. Phoenix, pun intended. Because they're the worst team in the league for the past at least 2 years when I was starting to pay attention to them. When we played them in the Horizon League tournament last year, they were the 11th seed. We hosted them in the first round as the 6th seed. So it hasn't been going well for Green Bay for quite some time until now. They're on a 6 game conference win streak, at least 5, but I think I heard 6 as well. I didn't look all the way back to check, but they're doing really good. They're 6-2. They're tied for second in the league. And when I was looking at the stats going into this game to give you guys the Instagram previews of things, they were the top defense in conference play. They passed Wright State, holding teams around 70 points a game, or maybe 72 points a game. They have the highest 3-point percentage in the league, despite taking some of the least threes in the league. Their field goal percentage was near top of the league, if not top of the league. So statistically, in conference play, Green Bay is a really good team. And I was expecting a showdown, kind of what we were expecting for the Wright State game. Not with the national TV spotlight on it, not with the packed arena on it, but in terms of play, two of the best Horizon League teams should have been a good game. It didn't happen either. It didn't happen this way either. Luckily, it was on the side of Oakland's, benefit, unlike the Wright State game where it was to our horrible detriment. It's just that this one was confusing. And it was apparent that Green Bay had no answer for anybody in Oakland's front court. Again, the front court performed excellently in this one, specifically Baru. And now I've talked about, if you guys have watched the show, I've talked about throughout this season where, Baru, it's almost like mute point. It's almost not even a point at this point in the season. Baru is the preseason Horizon League Player of the Year. And it's not that he's played bad, but he hasn't necessarily been the best, or the most flashy, the most offensive big man on Oakland's team. That goes to Isaac Garrett. Now, on the defensive side, that's a whole different set of skills and value, but everyone's kind of had a game at this point where you had, really early on, I think it was the Purdue game, you had a Zaire Wells game. And I think maybe even at Houston, you may have had an IG game, but, there's been multiple Isaac Garrett games. At Youngstown was one of them, as well. That was also a Brett White game where he scored 21 points. So we've seen IG, we've seen a Zaire Wells game, we've seen Hogue, Brett White, but we haven't really seen a Baru game yet. Also Brody Robinson, he's had multiple of those too. But we haven't seen a Baru game yet where he's the leading scorer, he is the one dominating, and he's the one kind of selfishly taking on some of those offensive possessions to score for himself, like where Campy's trying to push IG to do. I'm at least waiting to see what Baru can do in those kinds of situations. Well, Green Bay was the day for that because Baru was awesome. He was all over Green Bay's front court, especially, I forget his name. I'm going to scroll down and find it. But Bethea, the oldest college player in the NCAA, is 28 years old. He was kind of like the main matchup to Baru. Did not go well. Baru ended this game with 26 points, 10 rebounds, 3 for 3 from deep. Now, we've seen Baru shoot threes before, and I think at Michigan, the first points of the season was a Baru three-pointer. So, he's flashed that in his skill set so far this season, but it hasn't really been anything to rely upon. And especially, you contrast that with his struggles at the free throw line, so you just feel like the shot itself just lacks a little bit of touch. But 3 for 3 from deep is just hilarious. And it's pushed him to 26 points and 10 rebounds. And within the rebounds, he had 7 on the offensive glass. Killed Green Bay on that. And Oakland in general, with 18 offensive rebounds, 42 total compared to 8 and 24 of Green Bay, respectively. Oakland crushed the glass today. And it was awesome to see. So we finally got our Baru game. He was 9 of 15 from the floor as well. Had 2 assists, a block, and 2 steals. Super cool. Finally, we kind of have like the infinity gauntlet of Oakland players really shining in this game. It's a shame this Seam is injured and can't quite join into that. But that's pretty much everybody. Forgive me if I'm missing someone. I guess the last one would be a Coy Thurman game. But we'll see. When and if that comes out, not necessarily because of skill, but opportunity. He had a pretty good game against Milwaukee as well, but I feel like we've covered everybody at this point with Oakland. So it just speaks to the depth of this team where anybody can really have a game, and we've seen everybody have a game. I would say Hogue's game was the Milwaukee one, especially with that hot start. He ended with 19. I would say that one was a Hogue game. So, Baru aside, you got IG also chipping in as far as the front court. He had 17 points and 10 rebounds. And you had Zaire Wells, 14 points, 5 rebounds. And he was 2 for 2 from deep as well. He's a sneaky three-point shooter. Baru's super sneaky, but Zaire will take a few, and he'll go 1 for 3, 1 for 2 some days. Not high volume, but he's definitely, I would say, the third three-point shooting threat behind Brett at the first three-point shooting option, Brody Robinson the second, and I would say Zaire is probably the third. I'm not sure if Coy Thurman has quite gone up there for three-point shots, but and you got IG who can do it too, hasn't been asked to do it much. He tried it once in this game, but didn't make it. But either way, so that you could say this is your box score rundown. I'm kind of going off script here when it comes to describing this game, but just all in all, we'll kind of wrap this up with this kind of game. Just Oakland led the whole way. They led by a lot. It got within 3, middle of the first half, but Oakland just kind of blew things up, never let them get close, answered every basket they made, and just rolled through the state of Wisconsin. It was sweet. My favorite part of the Green Bay game, that I will say, is when Doug Gottlieb decided to challenge a blocking foul within the first 45 seconds of the game. Campy now waited until first few minutes of the second half to call his successful challenge. But Green Bay's coaching staff and Doug decided, yeah, now's a good time to burn a challenge. And he was pretty confident in the call or whatever, and he mentioned it in his post-game press conference. But I think you might want to save that and the timeout you lost as a result of losing the challenge for later in the game. I don't claim to be a basketball mind. However, if you get into the zone where I also am critical of a coach of a D1 basketball program, I gotta say it's a little bit questionable if I feel the courage and the expertise to cast judgment on it. So that was my favorite part of the game. That kind of set the tone, honestly, for the rest of the game. But that will wrap it up for Oakland's trip to Milwaukee. 88-63 is your final score, a 25-point win in Milwaukee, in Green Bay, a 13-point win in Milwaukee. And according to Griffin Beers of the Horizon Roundtable, it is the first time since the 17-18 season that Oakland has gone 2-0 in the state of Wisconsin. That now sets up for Oakland to play a lot of these home games, home games in the arena, and the rest of the away games are one-game trips, a little bit closer by. I think the farthest one is maybe it's Purdue Fort Wayne. It's these day trips, and you got the Detroit away game. I think Cleveland State is still on tap for a road game, but nothing super far away. Robert Morris might be the farthest one, but either way, it sets up Oakland now 7-2 in conference play to kind of continue it. Those home games should help, and I hope that they get some kind of a crowd. Maybe more the Cleveland State size of the crowd. Now, to ask a Wright State crowd for every home game is at this point in Oakland's athletic history, and it's impossible to ask for. Whatever, that's fine. But to get some kind of home crowd in those games to really push this chase of Wright State, because that's what it is now. We're both at 7 wins. Wright State 7-1. We're 7-2. They have the tiebreaker against us, so we got to chase even further if we want the regular season championship. But also, to put into context, the Horizon League tournament gives home games to the top 5 seeds. Oh, whatever happens, happens. But I still think Oakland is in great position for a regular season championship. If you're this high midway through the season in the standings, well, you go for it. Oh, it's definitely reasonable for me to expect it. Not expect it, but hope for it, want it, and it be possible at this point. I'm not going to demand it. I mean, we had one 2 years ago, so I won't demand it, but this team is definitely capable of it, which gives me great confidence. So we'll look down the schedule here for Oakland. Their next one is a home game on Wednesday against IU Indy, who I believe got their first win with an overtime win against Robert Morris the other night. Let me check their record to make sure. But I remember when I was watching the Milwaukee game, like that's kind of how bad it was getting that I was watching IU Indy. I got to use that ESPN Plus subscription somehow. But I'm looking through their schedule now. I think they won in overtime. They did. They beat Robert Morris for their only conference win, 96-93. They did lose to Detroit Mercy as part of their kind of trip to Michigan, as they'll be playing us next. Actually, they hosted Detroit Mercy. Oops. Either way, we host IU Indy, which, with all due respect, it's a 1-9 Horizon League team. We should win it. We have buzzsawed other teams that have come into the arena, better teams that have come into the arena. I have no reason to expect anything different from Oakland when they host the Jaguars. After that, though, they will head to Purdue Fort Wayne, host Northern Kentucky, and go to Cleveland State. That brings us up to February 4th. I won't go too far into it. But I will keep my eye on Detroit Mercy For Saturday's game on the 24th at Callahan Hall, I don't believe I can make it due to prior obligations, which sucks because I would love to be in Callahan Hall. We were there for WXOU a couple of years ago, or I was part of we, but I was there, and it's as much as we make fun of Callahan Hall for being this old stinky concrete block. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool court. The Dick Vitale court is pretty cool. I love the old school. It's almost like those stick hockey domes that you play on the tabletop. It's got that kind of old school scoreboard. I like the look of the place. You just don't go too far up into it. That's when you get spider webs and raccoons. But either way, I would love to be able to attend that. I don't think I will, but I'm keeping my eye on that one just because this feels like Detroit Mercy kind of coming up into things, not being total fodder. They're 5-4 in conference right now, but it's just I want some kind of rivalry like that. I don't want it to just be with Milwaukee, but I wanted to kind of boost the Horizon League's presence in the state of Michigan. Even though it's pretty much one of the most crowded sports states as you can get, I do want Oakland and Detroit Mercy's rivalry to be a part of that. So, and maybe even to be kind of a precursor to the Michigan State game that will be coming up that next week on the 30th. Just a little bit, kind of catch some of that wave a little bit. Hope that rivalry eventually will be able to do that, and hopefully Detroit Mercy can kind of hold up to things until we face them in Callahan Hall on Saturday the 24th. So that'll wrap things up here on the GioMo Show. Unscripted as we reach 20 minutes here. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. The subscription button right there at the bottom would really help out the show and the channel to help grow Golden Grizzlies coverage all across the world. You can find us on Spotify as well. A 5-star review there would really help. Apple Podcasts, like I said at the intro, whatever you do for Apple Podcasts, I think it's also a 5-star review system. All of that would help. Follow on Instagram, follow on Twitter, like, comment, whatever you do. It's all free. It all helps. And it all makes me feel very, very nicey. So John Gruden references aside, we'll see you next time where we talk about the Indy and Detroit game right here on the GioMo Show. My name is Giovanni Moceri, and we'll see you soon.